Zia couldn't believe it. How could Lin have leveled up so fast when he didn't know how to bypass the dungeon cooldown? However, this was a good opportunity for her to tease Lin. She turned to him and said, "If you say please, I'll tell you." Lin was now faced with a decision: sacrifice his pride and learn how to bypass the dungeon cooldown, or remain prideful and fail to hit level 16. His pride won and he remained silent. Zia was disappointed. She had hoped that Lin would beg her, but he didn't. She pulled out an item from her pocket and handed it to him. The beginner level cooldown talisman can reduce the cooldown of dungeons. However, since the rank was low, it would be ineffective on dungeons above level 20. Lin was stunned. He couldn't believe that an item like this existed. He turned to Zia and asked if the item was expensive. She informed him that her father paid a high sum to purchase it. Lin looked disappointed. He planned on asking her to borrow it, but it looks like he wouldn't be able to. Continuing on, Zia started complaining out loud. She had to clear 9 normal level dungeons to hit level 15, and with the beginner level talisman it was possible. But she would need to hit level 15 in 2 days, and after just a few hours she was already exhausted. Lin listened in and calmly thought about his options. He could party with her and share the beginner level talisman, or he could struggle to hit level 16. Lin looked at her and said, "I can party with you, that way you will definitely reach level 15. And you wouldn't have to do anything." Zia looked at Lin. She had completely forgotten that Lin could solo clear dungeons, and if she joined his party there would be more experience. But if she joined his party, then she would never be able to reach a higher level than him. However, at the pace her leveling was going, she could never catch up to him, so she took him up on his offer. Lin informed her that they will be starting in 2 hours, so she should rest. And while she rested, Lin meditated. 2 hours later, Lin woke Zia up, and they made their way to the dungeon entrance. At the portal, Lin used the beginner level talisman and selected the nightmare difficulty. Inside the dungeon, Zia started freaking out after seeing the monster's stats. She asked Lin if he chose the wrong difficulty by accident. Lin stepped out of the protective barrier and told her to stick close to him. She carefully made her way out of the protective barrier, looking around for any monsters. She was slowing him down, so Lin turned around and asked her if she was scared. She shouted "no way" and ran to catch up to him. With Zia by his side, Lin summoned more skeleton warriors from the summon space and ordered them to attack. The skeleton warriors' stats were so high that the level 14 goblins were doing no damage to them. They quickly made their way past the goblins and entered the Wolf King's den. Zia was horrified as she stared at the giant Wolf King. The one in the nightmare difficulty was twice the size of the Wolf King in the normal difficulty. Lin had brought a goblin's corpse with him. He threw the corpse in the air and activated the skill corpse explosion. It would be a waste of time to fight the Wolf King when he could kill it in one hit. Zia watched the explosions in shock. Her experience bar instantly filled up 30%, and Lin just killed the Wolf King in less than a minute. When her and her previous party suffered for 20 minutes, Lin looked back, signaling for them to keep moving. Zia followed behind him, but she was still in shock. A student below level 20 is solo clearing a nightmare difficulty dungeon, so she asked him if he had been soloing dungeons since he was level 10. Lin replied yes. Then 10 minutes later they arrived at the boss room. Zia still couldn't wrap her mind around what she was witnessing. Her previous party took over an hour to enter the boss room, but Lin did it in just 10. Lin wasn't done with the surprises. He threw a goblin corpse he carried with him and used corpse explosion, killing the Goblin King in one hit. After defeating the Goblin King, Lin reached level 15. The gap between him and Zia continued to grow. Zia received 25,000 experience points, the bronze level Goblin King's longsword, and a low-level monster's core. Zia was disappointed with her rewards. She wanted the Goblin King's scepter. Suddenly, Lin called out to her asking if she wanted the Goblin King's scepter. She replied saying that it was an item she was hunting for, and although there were some in the trade market, she didn't want to ask her father to buy it for her. Lin threw the Goblin King's scepter to her and told her to have it. She accepted it gratefully, but she questioned why Lin wasn't going to use the scepter himself. Lin pulled out the Goblin King's magic book from his storage and informed her that he likes using the book more than the scepter. Lin approached the Goblin King's corpse, as he expected gathering the monsters together and using corpse explosions was the fastest way to clear dungeon. He knelt down and spoke to the corpse. "Sorry, but you will have to die 5 more times." Zia asked him why he was talking to the boss, and Lin told her it was his ritual he performed after clearing the dungeon. Zia found it strange that Lin was speaking to the boss's corpse, but she also thought it was a bit cute. Another other one had fallen under Lin's spell. The both of them exited the dungeon, and after making it outside, Lin quickly activated the beginner level talisman, and they entered the dungeon again. They easily cleared the dungeon for the second time, and went back to clear it 3 more times. After their 5th run, the beginner level talisman used up all of its durability. However, this wasn't a concern for Zia. She reached level 14, and they still had half a day left before the big exam, meaning they could clear the dungeon 2 more times and she could reach level 15. She asked Lin if he was close to reaching level 16. Lin informed her that he was, and she asked him if he was planning to try and become a champion. She informed him that if he became a champion, he would receive a lot of points and would get a chance to enter the Creation Seminary. Lin asked her what the Creation Seminary was, and she told him that the Creation Seminary was a gathering of the best students in the country, and Zihai City only had 1 student inside the Creation Seminary. Zia thought that Lin had a high chance to become the second Zihai City student to enter the Creation Seminary. Lin started thinking. His sister was at Zia Jing Academy, and getting admitted is his goal, so if the chance to become the champion arises, then he would aim for it. Behind Lin, Zia noticed Gao Yang trying to join a party. He was now level 11, but because he was a knight he was rejected. Lin started approaching him so he could invite him to join his party. Then inside an office, the boss of the Dynasty Guild was screaming at his son for restricting a dungeon. He took a deep breath and told his son to stay in the guild until it was time for the exams, since he was already level 16. The son asked what his father planned on doing about the guild members that disappeared. He told his son not to worry about it since he already hired people to investigate the members' disappearance. Back at the dungeon entrance, Lin and Zia called out to Gao. He turned around and saw the 2 enemies walking closely with each other. He teased them, saying, "You 2 have gotten very close. What developments did I miss?" Zia told him to shut up or she would rip him apart. Then she told him to join their party once their cooldown ended. She was confident that they could help him reach level 12. Gao was grateful. His goal was reaching level 12. He continued to tease Zia. Then he asked her how long until the dungeon resets for them. She told him that they had 10 hours left. Gao decided to go hunt monsters and give his friend some room to continue working his magic. Suddenly he heard someone casting a spell, and when he turned around, Zia had activated the fireball skill. He quickly ran away. 10 hours later, the 3 returned to the portal, and after adding Gao to the party, they entered the dungeon. Inside the dungeon, Gao noticed that the stats of the goblins were very high. He asked Lin and Zia if they accidentally picked the nightmare difficulty. Zia told him to be quiet and follow along. She exited the protective barrier, and Gao followed closely behind her. In just a few minutes, they made their way to the boss room, and Lin one-shot the Goblin King. Gao was speechless. The final boss of the dungeon that even a party of 10 would find hard to defeat was just killed in 1 hit. He grabbed Lin by the leg and begged him to take him along anytime he entered a dungeon. Zia told him to act like a knight. However, Gao didn't think he should when Lin could just carry him. Gao continued to hold on to Lin's leg, making him uncomfortable. Lin asked him to let go of his leg and promised to bring him along in the future. The next day on the city wall, Principal Lu and a few others waited, anticipating the students' return. One of the other principals asked Principal Lu if the 2 geniuses from his school were aiming to enter Zia Jing Academy. Principal Lu replied, "Yes, both Lin and Zia are trying to get into Zia Jing Academy." According to the previous year test results, only those at level 15 had a good chance of entering, and those at level 16 were almost guaranteed to enter. Principal Lu had his hopes up for a miracle. Lin's sister managed to reach level 16, and Zia was the pride of her family. The first student from the other school approached the city gate. He was a swordsman that was able to reach level 12. The next student was a level 13 archer. A while passed, but Gao, Lin, and Zia hadn't shown up yet. The other principals started bragging about their students, even though no one above level 14 had appeared yet. A little while later, Lin, Gao, and Zia appeared. Gao was able to reach level 12 thanks to Lin's help. Zia reached level 15. However, this meant she only had an 80% chance of entering Zia Jing Academy. Lin, on the other hand, was level 16. The principals were shocked not only by their level but by the equipment they were carrying. That evening, Principal Lu guided Lin, Gao, and Zia to the bus that would take them back to school after the other students arrived. He is happy that his students made the other principals eat their words. Inside the bus, Lin was deep in thought. He was able to reach level 16 and was confident that he could get into Zia Jing Academy. He decided to aim for Creation Seminary. A while later, all the other students had arrived, and the bus took them back to the school, where they would rest for the night. The next day, Lin arrived at the examination site. His spirit energy was fully recovered. He had 100 skeleton warriors in the summoning space, and he was in peak condition. Gao spotted Lin making his way through the crowd and called out to him. Zia heard Gao and she quickly made her way to them. She asked Lin if he was confident in passing, and Lin responded with one word, yes. Since Lin was so confident, she asked him to promise her that they would meet in Jiajing Academy. Lin promised. Then all of the students were given a blue crystal. Principal Lu explained to them that if they infused spiritual energy into the crystal, then they would be transported to the examination site. The students all activated the crystal, and they were teleported away. Lin was the first to teleport to Jiangning Provincial Exam Center, and he counted the other students as they appeared. There were over 10,000 students in the exam center, and suddenly the trial tower was activated. After it was formed, the students heard a voice telling them to listen to the rule. No speaking was allowed, no questions were allowed, and if the students didn't follow the rule, they would fail automatically. Two students were confused. They turned to each other questioning what they just heard. Instantly, the two were disqualified and were teleported away. The voice continued. The trial tower will give you different trials based on your profession. Main battle types would be given a monster to defeat. Support professions will be put in various situations. After clearing the basic trial, students will be given an option to choose between 3 levels: normal, nightmare, and hell. The different levels would give the students different results and different amounts of points. The points would reflect their results, and they can be used in the academy. The point is the academy's version of gold. Finally, the student could only use the equipment they had equipped, but they couldn't use items in their storage space. Those who violated the rules would instantly be disqualified. The students got into a single file line, and after a while it was Lin and 2 other students' turn. As they were about to be teleported into the trial, professionals watched in anticipation of what the new necromancer profession could do in action. Inside the trial tower, Lin had to fight the wolf orc mage. The countdown started, and instantly after the timer reached 0, Lin used the soul blaze skill and killed the monster. The professionals looked at the results in disbelief. Lin killed the monster in 0.1 second. Inside the trial tower monitor room, the examiners were puzzled on how to judge Lin's abilities because he killed the monster instantly. Ning Xuanfeng, one of the main examiners, walked into the room. He had heard about Lin's exploits and he wanted to see him in action. On a screen, a video of Lin killing the monster in one hit played. But it wasn't enough to satisfy Xuanfeng's curiosity, and he asked the examiners to increase the trial difficulty for Lin to legendary. One of the examiner was concerned, feeling that it would be unfair to Lin. Xuanfeng told the examiner that it was fine since Lin was able to one-shot the monster, and if Lin is able to defeat the legendary difficulty, then he himself would give him 1,000 points, on top of the 100 he is already going to receive. Inside the trial, Lin was prompted to enter the second exam and kill the wolf beastman mage. Lin accepted, and instantly after the countdown ended, he used Soul Blaze, ending the fight. It was another instant kill. The examiners were shocked. Lin's abilities were on the level of a legendary class. With this, Xuanfeng was satisfied with Lin's abilities, and he concluded that the first rounds of the exams wouldn't be enough to get a full gauge on Lin's power. He asked the examiners to move on to the second rounds of the exams. It was then announced to the students that the first round of the exams was over, and out of 10,632 people, only 5,220 of them passed. The results were posted. Lin was in first place, a girl named Zuomei was in second, Zia was third, and Wang Zihao, the son of the Dynasty Guild leader, was fourth. Zia looked over the rankings. She expected Lin to get first place. What she didn't expect was for him to clap the boss in 0.1 second. But she was still motivated to continue. However, Zihao, on the other hand, was furious. He couldn't believe that he didn't make it into the top 3. He was convinced that Lin cheated. It was then announced to the students that the second round of the trial was beginning and that they could choose the difficulty. But a warning was given out to them explaining that the second trial was dangerous, so if it gets too dangerous, the student could shout forfeit to end their exams. The second trial was structured like a dungeon, and the students could choose from normal difficulty, nightmare difficulty, and hell difficulty. From this, Lin concluded that the second trial would likely be a competition to see which student could kill the most monsters in 30 minutes. Zihao, a level 16 rage warrior, is excited to prove that he wasn't a crybaby and that he was stronger than Lin. Zia knew that her profession, elemental mage, wasn't suited for close combat or 1-versus-1 situation, but she should be able to kill a large group of enemies. Inside the trial tower monitoring room, the examiners pulled up the information of the top 4 students. Even though they all looked promising, the examiners couldn't help but focus their attention on Lin. Lin knew that for most students the second exam would be difficult, but for him it would be light work. He chose the hell difficulty and entered the second exam. Inside a room, the principals from the different schools gathered. They were all feeling envious of Principal Liu for having two students rank in the top 3. Inside the trial, a level 13 wolf beastman warrior spawned, and after looking at their stats, Lin became very disappointed that the monsters were so weak. However, he expected this since the examiners didn't want the students to die. He summoned 2 skeleton warriors and ordered them to attack. The skeleton warriors attacked the wolf beast man warrior, killing them the second they spawned in. It was too easy for Lin. Inside the trial tower monitoring room, the examiners were speechless. Lin's profession had completely surpassed their expectations. And while the other students were exerting their energy, Lin had a picnic while 2 of his skeleton warriors farmed the wolf beastman warriors. 25 minutes later, it was announced that the second exam was over, and over half of the 5,000 students forfeited. Zihao was exhausted after killing 50 wolf beastman warriors, and he was excited to check the rankings, expecting to be first place. But to his surprise, the rankings hadn't changed and he was still in 4th place. He couldn't believe it. A monster spawned every 5 seconds inside the trial tower, and the maximum points you can earn from the hell difficulty is 1,800 points. And Lin got 1,600 points, meaning he killed 300 monsters in 30 minutes. Outside the tower, Principal Liu was trying his best to calm the other principals down. However, they were too surprised by how strong Lin was. Inside the tower, Lin was prompted to choose a difficulty for a boss-level monster, and like the Chad he chose the hell difficulty. Lin was teleported to the boss room, and a level 15 wolf beastman captain was spawned. However, the monster's stat couldn't compare to the elite monsters in Zai High Mines, further disappointing Lin. He understood that the higher-up wouldn't release a hell difficulty monster on students, but this was too much. He questioned if he was really that much stronger than the other students. Lin summoned his skeleton and ordered them to attack the boss. Inside the other trial, the students were struggling with the boss monster, and they activated their skill. However, Lin's skeleton one-shotted the boss with their rage shot skill. Inside the trial tower monitoring room, the examiners didn't know what to do. They felt like they hadn't seen Lin's real strength at all. One of them suggested that they wait for the 5th round of the exams to see Lin's full power. Lin opened the rankings, seeing that he had over twice the amount of points as the person in second, and that his friend Gao was also doing pretty good on the exams. Then it was announced that the 4th round of the exams was about to begin, and the difficulty had increased greatly, so the students were given a chance to forfeit. With their current points, getting into one of the top 100 academies wouldn't be a problem, but no one forfeited, and the rules were explained. On the 4th round of the exams, the students had to survive 10 waves of monster attacks. Each wave had 10 monsters, and the next wave would start even if the previous 10 monsters weren't defeated. The last wave of monsters would be led by a boss, and the students passed by killing all the monsters. Every monster is worth 10 points, and if they cleared all 10 waves, they could get 2,000 points. Inside the trial tower monitoring room, Xu and Feng and some other examiners expected this round of the exams to be a challenge for Lin. However, the others were doubtful. The trial began, and Lin concluded that 3 skeletons warriors would be enough to finish the 4th round, and he summoned 1 more skeleton warrior from the summon space. This angered the examiners, as they didn't expect Lin to be able to summon another skeleton warrior. Lin was bored, feeling that the exam was boring and less exciting than the Zai High Mines. Lin's bored expression angered the examiners even more, and they decided to observe the other students. Zia was using the skill Path of Fire and AoE attack to clear the waves. Zihao was cutting through the monsters with his sword. In the waiting area, the students who failed the 4th test were watching Lin in amazement. Gao, who managed to make it to the 6th wave, took this opportunity to educate the other students of Lin's exploits. It was finally the last wave, and only the top 5 students were left. Feng Ziyu had been saving his power for the last 2 rounds of the tower because they gave the most points. Zihao entered his berserk state for the final wave, and Lin still had a bored expression as his 3 skeleton warriors easily destroyed the final wave. With this, the 4th rounds of the exam came to an end, and the results were posted. Lin was first, Xiaomei was second, Zia was third, Zihao was fourth, and Feng Ziyu was fifth. They were the only students to pass the 4th rounds, and the failed students started wondering if someone could actually beat the 5th round. Zihao was exhausted from his skill, but he continued to act high and mighty. Zia took a deep breath, thinking that a top 5 ranking would be enough to get her into Zia Jing Academy. Mei's eyes were set on Zia Jing Academy. The examiners could see that some of the top 5 students were getting complacent, and he announced if they didn't take the 5th round seriously, then they would fail. and their chances of entering Ziyajing Academy would be 0. Continuing on, he explained the 5th round of the exams. The top 5 students will be teleported to a special place, the campaign space. The campaign space will spawn all sorts of monsters. The first wave would have over 100 monsters, and it contains boss-level monsters. The faster they killed the monsters, the faster they would spawn. They warned the students to watch how fast they were killing the monsters, and explained that the campaign space had 5 different phases. Each phase had a different score, but only the examiners could see the different scores. After the students entered, the examiners would be monitoring their scores. The announcement ended advising the students to use everything they were hiding. Inside the campaign space, Lin could feel the aura of death, and he concluded that the examiners did this to prepare the students for battle. He noticed some level 15 furry beastmen and was disappointed that they had no skills and their stats looked low. One of the furry beastmen roared, calling the others to his location. One of Lin's skeleton warriors attacked the monster, but to Lin's surprise, the monster didn't die in one hit, like the other monsters did. But 2 hits was enough. With the monster dead, Lin activated his corpse explosion skill, killing the others. Inside the trial tower monitoring room, the examiners were notified that Lin's points increased by 500. Inside the campaign, Lin wanted to wait for the other monsters to arrive and use corpse explosion on the corpses of the monsters he killed. However, after 10 seconds, the corpse started disappearing, so Lin changed up his plan. He summoned more skeletons from the summon space and ordered them to spread out and attack the leftover monsters. And as the skeleton warriors drew the attention of the monsters, Lin used corpse explosions, wiping out the monsters in the area and breaking the object the examiners were using to watch him. Inside the trial tower monitoring room, the examiners were panicking. They couldn't see what Lin was doing. But out of nowhere, his points increased by 4,500, meaning he already wiped out the first 100 monsters. Xu and Feng had many questions. What was Lin doing? What kind of broken, plot armor type profession is necromancer? And what were Lin's limits? Back at the campaign space, Lin was wondering if he needed to wait for more monsters to spawn again. Suddenly, he noticed a barrage of fireballs coming his way. He blocked the attack with his skeleton warriors, and he noticed some furry beastmen mages on a cliff who were using the fire rain skill. But instead of being worried, Lin looked excited. For the first time during the exams, more monsters had spawned for him to play with. And since they already attacked him, it was his turn. Suddenly, countless furry beastmen warriors charged in. However, Lin was unfazed. He ordered his skeleton warriors to attack the furry beastmen. The skeleton warriors rushed in and clashed with the furry beastmen. Lin then used the corpse explosion skill on the corpses of the furry beastmen his skeleton warriors killed, annihilating the army of beastmen that were charging at him. Inside the trial tower monitoring room, the examiners were shocked to see that Lin's points had suddenly increased by another 6,000 points. They couldn't believe that Lin had cheats on top of his summons and soul flame skill. They started questioning if his profession surpassed legendary professions. Back inside the campaign, the smell of death had gotten stronger, and Lin questioned if the second wave was about to start. The second wave began, and suddenly Lin had been surrounded by beastman archers and beastman warriors. The level and number of the monsters had increased drastically. It would be very difficult for those with a different profession to beat wave 2 of the campaign, but Lin had nothing to worry about. Inside the trial monitoring room, the examiners were having a discussion. In the entire history of the Shangxia Empire, there had only been one student to get past wave 3. However, it looked like Lin had a chance to be the second. The examiners believed that Lin had awakened his innate talent. This would be a blessing for mankind, and would mean that Lin could awaken another profession on his second awakening. At the waiting area, the leaderboard was updated. Lin was first with over 34,000 points, Zia was second with over 7,000 points, and Feng Ziyu was third with over 6,000 points. The other students were shocked. Lin was already dealing with the second wave while the others were still in the first. They wished they had the authority so they could send in boss monsters instead of giving him free points. At Ziyajing, the capital city of the Shenzhia Empire, the true form of the Tower of Trials, one of the 3 great divine towers of the Shenzhia Empire, was suddenly attacked by a black beam. The tower was able to stop the beam and defeat the monster that attacked. However, before the monster died, it laughed, saying, "Kill me, I'm just a clone. However, those brats in the tower will die." Later, 3 hunters were observing the true form of the Tower of Trials. They didn't expect that the remnants of the abyss would attack them so openly, and it was clear that their aim was the students taking their exams. One of the hunters is afraid that the tower would be in chaos since the remnants of the abyss managed to enter the tower. However, he is told that there was nothing to fear since the tower draws its power from the abyss. Bai Yuan, the top hunter in the Shenzhia Empire, asked the other hunters how long it would take to restore the tower, and they replied saying it would take an hour. Inside the campaign, all of the monsters suddenly disappeared, confusing Lin, and while looking around, he gets noticed by Zia, who called out to him. She was confused. How was it possible for her to meet with the other examinees? The monsters that she was fighting had suddenly disappeared, and she asked Lin if he knew what was going on. Lin told her that he didn't know either, and suddenly Zihao and the other students appeared. A hologram of Bai Yuan appeared in the sky, and after greeting the students, he introduced himself. Continuing on, he explained that a demon of the abyss had infiltrated the campaign and was targeting them. He and the other hunters were doing their best to restore everything, but it could take up to an hour. So during that hour, he wanted the students to do their best to protect themselves. He didn't know how the monster from the abyss would attack them, but he believed that if they worked together, they could survive for an hour. The hologram of Bai Yuan disappeared, and Zihao instantly took charge, chanting, "We shall not be afraid to die while fighting." Lin, on the other hand, was thinking, the weakest monster from the abyss is at least level 70, and since Bai Yuan said they could win, that means the monster that infiltrated wasn't that strong. Inside the trial tower monitoring room, the examiners were panicking about what Bao Yuan had said. Ning Xuanfeng told the examiners not to panic and to believe in Bai Yuan. He also told them to relay Bai Yuan's message to the others outside. Back inside the campaign, the blood moon of the abyss appeared, signaling that the forces of the abyss are on the move. The students following Zihao's orders took a defensive formation as the forces of the abyss began to gather. The level cap in the campaign is level 19, and a level 19 beast-man warrior that's been corrupted by the abyss appeared. The students felt relieved that they only had to fight one level 19 monster. However, more of the beastman warriors started to appear. Zia grabbed onto Lin's arm, asking him what they should do. There were a lot of monsters, so Lin knew it would be troublesome, but they should be able to deal with them. All the monsters are enhanced elite monsters that were on the same level as the enhanced monsters in the nightmare level dungeon Lin was soloing. Since the monsters were enhanced by the abyss, Lin was wondering if they would give him more experience. The army of beastmen approached the students slowly. The voice of the abyss monster spoke, mocking what Bai Yuan had told the students earlier. Zihao and the other students trembled in fear. He knew that they couldn't win against the monsters, and he was unable to exert his strength due to the monster's aura. Lin started walking towards the army of beastmen as his skeleton warriors followed. Zia called out to him, asking why he was approaching the monsters. Lin turned back, telling her to take a step back, but she refused and followed closely behind him. Lin decided to ignore her since she wouldn't be able to get in his way and continued approaching the monsters. The other students decided it would be best if they followed closely behind Lin as well. As Lin approached, the voice of the abyss monster spoke, praising Lin for having the guts to step up to try and fight the beastmen. It asked Lin if he would abandon the students and join him in the abyss. Lin remained silent. In his head, he calculated that the distance between him and the monsters was 50 meters, which is the best distance to use his corpse explosion skill. Lin stopped approaching the beastman and summoned all 100 skeleton warriors from the summon space and ordered them to attack. The skeleton warriors rushed in and used the rage shot skill on the beastman. However, much to Lin's surprise, the beastman didn't die. It seemed like the corrupted beastman had 3,000 points in strength and 3,500 into health. Lin smiled because the more health the monsters had, the more effective his corpse explosion skill would be. His skeleton warriors were finally able to kill one beastman warrior, and Lin got 8,000 experience. This made Lin happy, and even though there wasn't much experience, it would add up because of the amount of monsters. Lin activated the corpse explosion skill, wiping out all of the beastmen. The other students couldn't believe it. Lin had just wiped out an army of level 19 monsters just like that. Zihao fell to his knees. He couldn't understand why Lin was so powerful and why he wasn't the one that awakened the necromancer profession. The abyss monster was outraged, and it retracted its offer of having Lin join him in the abyss. Now it wanted to devour Lin. It summoned more beastman warriors to attack the students. Lin was able to locate the abyss monster's location, and he ordered his skeleton warriors to protect the students from the new monsters that had spawned. Afterwards, he picked up a beastman's corpse and threw it at the abyss monster and used corpse explosion. The abyss monster wasn't dead yet, so he used the soul flame skill. The abyss monster couldn't believe it. His soul was being burnt through. But there is no way a profession like should exist. Back outside at the Tower of Trial's true form, Bai Yuan and two other hunters suddenly felt that the power and influence of the abyss monster was weakening tremendously. Bai Yuan was filled with rage. He released his spiritual energy and asked if everyone in the tower was dead. One of the hunters informed him that he could still sense human auras inside the tower, and it seemed like the abyss monster had been injured. Bai Yuan stopped releasing his spiritual energy. He was glad that the students were safe. But the Abyss monster was using the power of the Abyss so how would level 15 and 16 students be able to injure it? Inside the Tower of Trials, the Abyss monster was enraged and it buffed the stats of the Beastman warriors. Lin was in shock, his corpse explosion skill had leveled up, and the radius had increased to 20 meters, and the damage was now equal to 150% of the enemy's HP. He questioned if the corpse explosion skill is the only skill that would level up the more he used it, or if all skills learnt through his skill scroll would level up this way. Lin leveled up as well, and with the level 2 corpse explosion skill it was time to end the Abyss monster. The other students couldn't believe it. Lin was getting stronger even in their current situation, while the only thing they could do was be thankful that he was on their side. Lin ordered his skeleton warriors to throw the corpses of the Beastman into the sky, and after the corpses reached the monster he used the skill corpse explosion, destroying the Abyss monster. The sky slowly began to go back to normal. The students looked up to the sky questioning if they had survived the Abyss monster's attack. Outside at the Tower of Trials' true form, the Grandpa Hunter told Bai Yuan that the presence of the Abyss monster had disappeared, and the tower was in the process of recovering. Bai Yuan nervously asked the Grandpa Hunter how the kids were doing, and the Grandpa Hunter explained that the students were fine and there wasn't a single casualty. Bai Yuan was stunned. This was totally different from what they were expecting to happen, and he wondered what had happened inside the tower. He asked the Grandpa Hunter to teleport the students out of the campaign mode so they could investigate what had happened. Inside the campaign, Zia approached Lin asking him if he was okay. Lin answered saying he was fine. Suddenly a hologram of Bia Yuan appeared in the sky again, explaining to the students that the power of the Abyss monster had disappeared and that they would be teleported to the original examination site. Afterwards, the results would be announced. After the students were teleported to the original examination site, the voice of the tower spoke asking the students to wait for the results to be posted. Inside the tower trial monitoring room, Ning Chu and Feng was deep in thought. The main combat exams results consisted of scores and evaluation. Being admitted to the top schools isn't just about having a high score, the student's evaluation score must also be outstanding. And he couldn't wait to see what Lin's evaluation scores would be. Inside the campaign, Bai Yuan and some other hunters were reviewing what had happened when the Abyss monster attacked. Lin's necromancer abilities were on full display. His strength was ridiculous, and besides being ridiculously strong, he was also decisive. He already had the makings of a top-tier hunter. Some of the hunters present believed that it would be hard to evaluate the candidates this year. However, others disagreed. Those students that ran away from the battle would receive a low score for being cowards. They couldn't decide, so they gave Lin an excellent score and continued discussing what to do about the other students. At the waiting area, the results were finally posted. Principal Liu rejoiced, saying Lin did it. He received the number 1 score. The other principals congratulated Principal Liu, and at the original examination site, Zia congratulated Lin for receiving the top score. Lin smiled and thanked her. Zia was surprised. She didn't know that Lin could smile, and his smile looked nice, so she asked him why he didn't smile more often. In the leaderboards, Lin was first, Zia was second with an evaluation score of 7,600. Feng Ziyu was third with an evaluation score of 6,700. Xiaomei was fourth with over 6,300 points. Zihao was fifth, but his evaluation score was poor, and with a poor evaluation score, no academy in the top 20 would accept him. Zihao was enraged, and he complained about being rated as poor. The examiners decided to expel him for violating the exam rules. Then they announced that for the combat profession, this year's top student was Lin. Gao cheered loudly in the middle of a crowd, saying, "Do you see that? My friend is the top student in the entire province." The examiners asked Gao to be quiet and announced that Lin wasn't just the top student in the province, but he was the top student in the entire country. Principal Liu was beyond happy, and he could hear angels singing praise. This was something he could brag about for the rest of his life. The other students from Lin's school were also taking pride in the fact that a student from their school was now the top student of the whole country. Xiaomei and Feng Ziyu approached Lin congratulating him and thanking him for saving them in the campaign. They asked him if he was trying to get into Jiajing Academy. Lin told them that he was, and they asked to meet up after he entered Jiajing Academy. Lin replied okay, and Zia apologized to Xiaomei and Feng Ziyu, explaining that Lin doesn't like to talk much. Lin asked her what she was talking about, when he had been talking a lot the whole day. Later that night at Lin's house, Lin grabbed the picture of him, his grandma, and his sister and told his grandma that he had become the #1 student in the country. He heard knocking on the door and got up to get it. It was Principal Liu. and he was joined by a hunter. The hunter that was with Principal Lu started emitting killing intent, so Lin summoned a skeleton warrior from the summon space. Bai Yuan was impressed that Lin reacted even though he was stronger than him. He stopped emitting his killing intent, and Lin could finally see that it was Bai Yuan. He lowered his head and greeted the number one hunter. Bai Yuan told Lin that he wanted to talk about Jiajing Academy. So far he was impressed with Lin's reaction time and his composure. Lin sat the two down, and as he poured tea, Principal Lu asked Bai Yuan to forgive Lin's actions earlier and told him that Lin has been living alone since his sister went to Jiajing Academy. This impressed Bai Yuan further. Not only was Lin about to enter Jiajing Academy, his sister was already a student. Bai Yuan looked at Lin's skeleton warrior, shocked to see that they only had 250 points into each stats. But then how would he have been able to defeat the abyssal monster? Lin was shocked. It seemed like his theory was correct, and he was the only one who could see the talent-boosted stats of his skeleton warriors. Bai Yuan asked Lin if the skeleton stats had been boosted by his talent, and Lin informed the two that he awakened a talent that amplified all of his skills, shocking Principal Lu. However, this made sense to Bai Yuan, and he told Lin that he had two things to discuss with him. First was his reward from Jiajing Academy, and second, he wanted him to take a test in 2 days. Lin asked him what kind of test he wanted him to take, and Bai Yuan explained that the test is for Jiajing Academy, and only Jiajing students can take part. But he couldn't give Lin more details about the test until he accepted to participate. Lin started thinking about the test. The decision of accepting was up to him, but there were too many unusual variables. Sensing that Lin might reject, Bai Yuan told him that the test would be a rare opportunity for him, and originally he wouldn't have been able to participate. Instantly, Lin accepted, making Bai Yuan happy. He took out Lin's rewards, and as the top student in the nation, Lin's rewards were quite good. He received a card containing 100,000 points, which is equal in value to gold in Jiajing Academy. The second reward was 2 scrolls, 1 primary and 1 intermediate skill scroll. The third reward was based on his performance against the abyssal monster. He was given permission to enter the Divine Summer Tower once. Bai Yuan advised Lin to prepare well before he entered. Lin understood, especially because Bai Yuan was the one telling him to prepare. Bai Yuan gave Lin some time to clean himself up before he took him to Jiajing Academy. A while later, the three met in front of Lin's house, and Bai Yuan teleported Lin to the entrance of Jiajing Academy. Bai Yuan explained to Lin that the gates of Jiajing Academy also functioned as a weapon, and even top-tier hunters would be injured if they tried to enter with force. He asked Lin to follow him and brought Lin to the residential area. There, a fellow student greeted Bai Yuan. The student wondered who Lin was, since the strongest hunter was bringing him to Jiajing Academy, yet his tone was cold. The student asked Lin to choose a room he would like to stay in, and explained that they had various rooms: 4-person rooms which cost 500 points a month, 2-person rooms which cost 1,000 points a month, single rooms which cost 2,000 points a month, villa which cost 10,000 points a month. Finally, the practice villa, but the price remains unknown. The student tried to advise Lin to choose the 4-person room or 2-person rooms to save his points. However, Lin went with the single room, shocking the student. He brought Lin to his room, and since he was satisfied, he asked him for his card to pay. The student was shocked to see how many points Lin had, and he asked him how he managed to get so many. Lin explained that he got it for becoming the #1 student in the nation. The student now realized why Lin could afford staying in a single-person room. However, he thought it was a bit unfair because in his entire time in Jiajing Academy, he only collected 10,000 points. But Lin was starting with 131,000 points. The student quickly left after advising Lin to get a communication device. After the student left, Lin observed some students who were training close by. Unlike his old school, the students of Jiajing Academy were hard-working, and in that kind of atmosphere, he is bound to level up quickly. To not fall behind, he started meditating. The next day, his meditation came to an end when someone rang his doorbell. Lin opened the door, seeing a face he hadn't seen in a while. Ning grabbed Lin's hands, quickly pulling him along. She had made plans for the day, but first they should have breakfast. Inside Jiajing cafeteria, after they had gotten their food, Lin took out his card to pay. However, Ning informed him that he could pay with coins. Lin told her that he didn't have points, and she says he should have asked because she had plenty and didn't want him to waste points that are hard to earn. She looked at the receipt, happy that it was only 5 points, but something else caught her attention. Lin had over 130,000 points, and she questioned how he managed to get so many. A while later, while showing Lin around, she told him to avoid spending points as much as possible. Even if he had a lot, Lin told her that he would, and took out the Goblin King's core and gave it to her. She was captivated by the core, and she asked if it was the Goblin King's core. He told her that it was, and she went on a rant about how valuable the core is, and if he really planned on giving it to her for free. He told her that he didn't have a use for it, and she accepted without regret. She continued to show Lin around the campus of Zhejiang Academy, and afterwards she brought him to the Academic Affairs office to complete his enrollment. After finishing his enrollment, Lin looked up information about his sister, but nothing appeared. He asked Ning why he couldn't find his sister's information. She told him that his sister might be on a special confidential mission for the academy, or she might have joined a specialized section of Zhejiang Academy. She told him to stop worrying, since nothing bad should have happened to her, and asked him to follow her. She brought him to a classroom, telling the student Taodao that she brought the #1 student in the nation. Taodao introduced herself to Lin, telling him that she was level 23 and her class was Elf Knight. Lin did the same, and a student in the corner of the room expressed how disappointed he was that Lin was only level 17. He told Ning that she couldn't just bring random students. Ning confronted Ling Zhen, explaining that Lin was strong enough to become the top student in the nation. However, Zhen thought Lin's power wouldn't improve their Hidden Dragon team. He had seen the previous top student, but they were trash. He approached Lin, telling him not to act important just because Bai Yuan brought him to the academy. In their Hidden Dragon team, strength is all that mattered. He was willing to bring Lin along for the sake of the test, but he told him not to do anything stupid. His arrogance was worse than Zia's. Lin was starting to get irritated, and he asked Zhen why he sounded so jealous. This cut Zhen deep, and he started to chant a skill. Taodao activated a barrier protecting the other students from Zhen's energy. She asked Zhen to stop. He stopped in consideration for Taodao, and as he walked away, Taodao informed Lin that they would meet in the classroom the next day at 9 o'clock. She can only share more information about the test tomorrow, so she asked him to be understanding. Lin thanked her for giving him an opportunity, and Ning asked Lin to follow her so they could shop for the test. After Lin and Ning exited the room, Taodao told Zhen that she understood why he was acting this way, but Lin must be strong since Bai Yuan brought him to the academy, and they needed one more strong student for the test. Zhen told her that he wanted to see what kind of person replaced his brother as the top student. Taodao explained that Lin's achievements makes him qualified to be in their group, and his class is something they had never seen before. Zhen expressed that every year a new class appears, but most of them are trash, and Necromancer is probably the same. Outside the classroom, Ning told Lin that they needed to buy health potions, mana potions, and a communication device. A while later, after they had finished buying everything, Ning asked Lin to become friends with her on the communications device so she could talk to him all the time. And after Lin added her as a friend, she left so Lin could rest for the test tomorrow. Random question, but which waifu would you guys choose, Zia or Ning? Drop in the comments. To prepare for the test, Lin used the primary skill scroll and received the slow curse skill. The skill reduced the speed of his enemies, and after the talent amplification, the range increased to 50 meters, and the duration was also extended to 10 minutes. Lin's skills could now be categorized into 3 areas: summoning, DPS, and curse user. He hoped to learn another skill that would expand this category of skills even more. The next day, Ning called Lin on the communications device, asking him to come to the cafeteria for breakfast. A while later, all the members of the Hidden Dragon team had gathered inside the classroom. Taodao informed them that it could be dangerous after they teleported into the testing grounds, so they should stick together. Jin took a shot at Lin, asking him not to slow them down. Lin remained unbothered. Ning, however, told Jin that he would be the one to slow them down. Seeing the conflict in the group, Taodao expressed that the test was important, so whatever issues they had should stop after entering the testing grounds. She asked them to introduce themselves, and one by one the students gave their names and class. First was Miao Yu, a level 20 Elf Elder. Second, Duangao, a level 20 Diviner. Third was Zhen, a level 20 Warlock. Fourth was Taodao, a level 23 Elf Knight. Fifth was the Chad himself, Lin, a level 17 Necromancer. Finally, last was Ning, a level 19 Shadow Assassin. After the introduction, Taodao activated the teleportation crystal for the Hidden Dragon team. They were teleported to the Divine Zia Tower. The map for the test was chosen, Mermaid Island, and again the students were teleported. In front of them was the mission stone that would give them the details of the test. All the members of the Hidden Dragon team placed their hands on the crystal and learned that their objective is to defeat the final boss and obtain the Mermaid's tier. Only a team of 6 students with an average level of 20 could take the test. The Mermaid's test only dropped on the Nightmare difficulty, and there's only 3 tiers to collect. In other words, only the top 3 teams would get the reward. In the end, their goal is to clear the dungeon the fastest. Taodao wasn't expecting that they would have the mermaid map. She had participated in a lot of tests, so Ning asked her why she was worried. Taodao explained that the mermaid's tier can be used to craft a special item, but Mermaid Island isn't a part of the territory of the Divine Zia Empire, so students from other countries also come to Mermaid Island every year. There were a total of 10 teams taking the test in Jiajing Academy, meaning they had to compete with fellow students and students from other countries. Ning asked her what they should do if they ran into a team from another country. Taodao told her that in all the tests before, the other teams just try to block the exits, but she shouldn't let her guard down because some students have died during the test. Seeing that Ning looked scared, Lin told her not to worry because he would protect her if they encountered a dangerous situation. With the members of the Hidden Dragon team ready, Duan activated his support skill, buffing the stats of each member. It was a 30% stat increase and a 30% skill damage increase, but they were nothing compared to the boost his talent had. He got curious about how the buff skill would affect his skeleton warriors, so he summoned one from the summoning space and asked Duan to apply his buff skill on the skeleton warrior. The skill failed and Lin concluded that it's likely his talent is overriding the buff skill. Jen spoke, saying that if the skeleton warriors couldn't be buffed, then they would be as useless as their master. Lin and his skeleton warrior turned to Jen, asking him if he wanted to fight. However, Taodao stepped in, saying they could fight after the test. Jen was intimidated by Lin's skeleton. He doesn't know why, but every time the skeleton warrior looked at him, he froze. With the dispute settled, the Hidden Dragon team started heading towards the center of the Mermaid Island. Taodao explained that their target is the center of the island and ordered them to avoid fighting monsters as much as possible. Suddenly, a merfolk jumped out of the lake that was close by and attacked. Thanks to Jen and Ning, they were able to defeat the merfolk, but Jen's fireball drew the attention of all the merfolk in the area. If they faced the monster head-on, it would take them 3 hours to reach the center of the island, which would be too slow. So Taodao put Mayo in charge of controlling the monsters so they could charge through. Mayo lifted her staff in the air and activated the wind bind spell, gathering all of the monsters together and creating an opening for the others to charge through. 20 minutes later, the path to the center had been blocked by more merfolk, and they were starting to fall behind the other groups. Taodao asked Mayo if her skill would be able to bind all of the monsters in front of them. Mayo informed her that there were too many enemies to control, and the monsters were now level 22, meaning her skill won't work on them. Charging in directly could put them in danger, but it would take too long to go around the monsters. Lin stepped up, telling Taodao that he could handle it. Jin laughed, asking Lin what a level 17 like him could do, explaining that it would be better if he continued to hide behind a woman. Taodao told Jin to shut his mouth, and she asked Lin what his plan was. Lin explained that he would use his skeleton warrior to distract the merfolk. Taodao decided to trust Lin's plan. Lin ordered the skeleton warrior to charge in and distract the monster, giving the group the opportunity to sneak past the monsters. After they were safe, Lin recalled the skeleton warrior to the summoning space. Taodao praised him on a job well done. However, Zhen disagreed, explaining that they are safe because of the skeleton warrior, and Lin by himself is just trash. Lin faced Jen and told him that he only had one last chance to disrespect him. Mayo, who was keeping watch, called out to the group, telling them to run. The merfolk that Lin's skeleton was distracting had caught up. The students from the other country were also present. The other country's students had the spirit summoner profession. He activated one of his skills, blocking Lin's group path of escape. Maya was stunned, and she asked Taodao why a student would do this. Taodao explained that he wanted to stop other students from reaching the center of the island. The student hopped on one of his summons and told Lin's group to use the mission stone to teleport away if they didn't want to get hurt. The student rode off on his summon, leaving his group behind. Taodao turned to Lin, asking him if there's anything his skeleton warrior could do. Lin summoned 2 skeleton warriors, one to draw the merfolk away, and the other to face off against the student's summon. With Lin's help, the other students were able to catch up to the other country's student, but they were intercepted by merfolk with bows and arrows. The group that was with Lin managed to protect themselves, however the other country's student was killed. After the first round, all of the teams in Jiajing Academy gathered. The other groups were looking for a powerful mage. Hearing this, Jin got an idea. He approached Taodao and told her he would join another team. He gave her a choice: either he leaves the group or they kick Lin out. He expected that Taodao would kick Lin out because the value of a mage had increased. However, Taodao decided to kick Jin out of the group. Taodao's words left Jen speechless. He questioned if he had heard correctly and reminded the party that without him they wouldn't be able to pass the test. He then asked Taodao if she wanted to get into the creation seminary. Taodao asked Jin if he had forgotten what her profession is. She is an elven knight with a strong sense of morality. Lin has helped them during the test so far, so her morals wouldn't let her abandon him that easily. Jin angrily walked away, telling Taodao not to regret her decision. Lin approached Taodao and told her they should try to enter the dungeon again. Taodao was worried and reminded Lin of the battle going on outside the dungeon gate between the students. Ning managed to convince Taodao to trust Lin, and Duan and Mayo decided decided to follow along as well. Even though she agreed, Cao Dao still had her doubts, but if things were to get dangerous with her skills, she believed she could save the others. However, one thing she couldn't understand was why Ning trusted Lin so much. With this, they started walking in the direction of the dungeon gate. A while later, they arrived and were in the middle of the battle. Lin confidently approached the dungeon gate, and the other followed suit. The students from the other cities warned Lin and his party not to get close, otherwise they would be forced to attack. The students from Xiajing Academy realized that Lin was the one who saved them previously, and they decided to protect him to repay the debt. Jin, who had joined the other city students, smiled and asked the Xiajing students if they wanted to die. Lin remained unbothered and continued to approach the dungeon gate. Since Lin didn't listen to their warning, the other city students launched their attack. Instantly, Cao Dao jumped in front of Lin with her shield to protect him. Lin summoned dozens of skeleton warriors. The skeleton warriors leaped forward, blocking the other city students' attacks. Cao Dao, Mayo, and Duan were completely stunned. They couldn't believe that Lin could actually summon that many skeleton warriors. The other city students complained, saying Lin's profession was too OP. All of their attacks did nothing to Lin's skeletons. Even though the skeletons looked like they would fall apart any moment, Lin continued to walk forward unbothered by their words. He reached the entrance of the dungeon and the other city students tried to stop him, but it was too late. Inside the dungeon, Cao Dao became concerned because Lin chose the nightmare difficulty. She was worried because she didn't know how they would clear it without Jin. Ning told her not to worry because Lin's skeletons were very strong. Cao Dao says, if that's the case, I will do my best to block the monsters. Mayo spoke, saying they had nothing to worry about because she could heal and crowd control. Duan added that he would be providing buffs. Suddenly, they all received experience for killing a level 21 merfolk. This confused them and they looked around, questioning why they suddenly received experience. While looking around, they saw Lin's skeleton warrior defeat an elite merfolk warrior in one hit. Lin summoned 2 more skeleton warriors and commanded them to charge forward and kill any monster in their path. Lin followed closely behind his skeleton warriors as they charged forwards. Cao Dao was stunned. What Lin's skeleton warrior just killed in one hit would take the perfect party 1 or 2 minutes to kill. After telling the others to follow, Ning chased after Lin. Duan called out to Lin and Ning, asking them to wait so he could fully process what he just witnessed. Cao Dao told him to process while they followed behind Lin. The skeleton warriors charged forwards using the rage shot skill to kill all the merfolk they came across. Cao Dao was in disbelief. This is the first time she had been useless in a dungeon. Usually she would be in the front blocking attacks for her party. Even Mayo and Duan felt like they weren't needed. A while later, they arrived at the end of a cliff. Ning looked down the cliff and saw a monster that looked like the mini-boss. She pointed the monster out to the others. Lin observed the merfolk queen serpent. The serpent's stats were even higher than the goblin king's stats. Cao Dao approached the front line, saying she would block the monster's attack. However, Lin told her to step back because it wasn't necessary. Lin summoned another skeleton warrior and commanded the 3 skeleton warriors to jump down the cliff. After jumping down, the skeleton warriors did their best to attack the serpent, but it was too fast. Cao Dao asked Lin what he planned on doing because his skeleton warriors were too slow to land a hit on the serpent. Lin told her not to worry and activated the slow curse skill he acquired from the skill scroll. The skill slowed the serpent down and Lin's skeleton warriors were finally able to attack it. Lin had powerful summons and could even use curses, and Cao Dao started to question what else Lin's profession could do. The serpent used the death strangle skill and wrapped its body around one of Lin's skeletons, crushing its bones. It proceeded to use its venomous blast, but because Lin's skeletons were already undead, venom didn't have much of an effect. The skeleton warriors succeeded in killing the serpent. For killing the serpent, Lin received 50,000 experience and obtained silver grade armor, serpent scale armor, and an intermediate level monster's core. Duan and Maya were having a hard time wrapping their minds around what they were witnessing. Without doing anything, they had gained so much experience. Cao Dao asked them to not get distracted and to follow closely behind Lin. The mini-boss name was Pet Serpent of the Queen of the Merfolk, and she was worried they would have to face the Merfolk Queen as the final boss. As they walked, the smell of fish continued to grow stronger, and they came across the castle of the Merfolk. Lin did a headcount of the merfolk. Afterwards, he informed the others that there were 60 merfolk on patrol, which means there would be at least 180 of them. The others were concerned, but Lin wasn't, because the more monsters the better. He summoned his skeleton warriors and commanded them to charge in. Cao Dao called out to Lin, trying to stop him. Even though Lin's skeletons were strong, she still thought he was being rash. The merfolk noticed Lin's skeletons charging in and they attacked. The skeleton's warriors used the Berserk Strike skill, killing the merfolk in front of them in one hit, but all the commotion got the attention of the other merfolk on patrol. Lin asked the others to cover their ears and activated the corpse explosion skill. Instantly all of the merfolks were wiped out. Taodao and the others started to question why Lin's profession was so strong. It was their first time receiving so many notifications at once. The door to the palace opened and the queen of the merfolk was waiting inside. I will not be hearing anyone out in the comments. Ning and the others were captivated by the queen's beauty and they fell under her spell. They slowly started approaching the queen. However, Lin ain't no simp and wasn't affected by her spell. He quickly realized that the others had fallen for her spell. He used his skeleton warriors to stop them from getting closer to the queen. However, he didn't have a way to free them. Luckily, Mayo managed to free herself from the queen's spell, and she used the skill of Clear Mind to free the others. After coming back to their senses, they questioned what had happened to them. Mayo explained that they had fallen under the queen's enchantment magic. But Lin was unaffected and he stopped them from approaching the queen, in turn saving the entire party from getting wiped out. The queen looked around seeing the dead bodies of the merfolk. Seeing her dead children pushed the queen into a blinded rage. The once beautiful queen became an unrecognizable monster. The queen activated the fearsome shriek skill. Her shriek stirred waves of water like a violent storm. Taodao watched the queen closely. Given the type of skill she witnessed the queen using, she concluded that it would take a normal 6-man party at least an hour to beat her. But Lin has proven to be unordinary. She began to watch Lin instead. Lin sent his skeleton warriors to attack the queen, but her stats were now too high for the skeleton warriors to withstand her attacks. Watching the scene unfold in front of her gave Taodao the feeling like she was watching a small pack of wolves attack a lion. However, it was still hard for her to tell who would win. The merfolk queen threw her trident, destroying one of the skeleton warriors. Taodao noticed that the queen is likely to win against Lin's skeletons. She turned to Duan and asked him to prepare to buff them. She planned to charge in after the queen had killed all of Lin's skeletons. Lin told her not to worry and activated the slow curse skill, but the skill had no effect. In fact, the queen only saw it as a nuisance. She activated the billowing wave skill, freeing herself and destroying 12 of Lin's skeleton warriors. It looked like Lin's skeleton warriors wouldn't be able to defeat the merfolk queen, so Taodao decided it was their turn to step in. She asked Lin to call back his skeleton warriors. However, Lin just summoned all 87 skeleton warriors from the summon space. Taodao, Mayo, and Duan were left speechless. They weren't able to grasp the number of skeleton warriors Lin could summon, and they were finally able to see why Ning believed in Lin so much. He is a one-man army. However, Ning was surprised as well. Lin became stronger like she expected he would, but he did so at a rate that far exceeded her expectations. The skeleton warriors charged in and started overwhelming the queen. As a last resort, the queen used the Tears of the Queen skill. Mayo became concerned because her level was too low to counter the queen's skill. Lin told her she had nothing to worry about. His vigor stat is high enough so he wouldn't be affected by the queen's skill, and his skeleton warriors are emotionless, fearless dead souls that didn't feel pain. Just as Lin thought, the queen's last resort had no effect and his skeleton warriors were able to defeat the queen. He received 80,000 experience, the silver rank item Queen of the Merfolk Sword, Queen of the Merfolk Staff, and the Tear of the Merfolk. Ning was excited. With the tier they were done with the test and were one step closer to the Academy of Genesis. Taodao added that once they finished the test and leveled a little bit more, they would be more than qualified to enter the Academy of Genesis. Duan and Mayo also added that all of this wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for Lin, and the most disappointing thing was Jin. They vowed to never team up with him again. Lin approached Ning asking if she had a cooldown talisman. She says she did and asked Lin if he was planning on doing the dungeon again. Lin told her he was and asked for the cooldown talisman. This left the others completely speechless. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video then hit the like button.